Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Larry Nelson. I am your MC today. And on behalf of the Greater Morgantown Convention and Visitors Bureau and the great city of Morgantown, welcome. And we're so glad Karen made it. She really rushed. Karen Knotts, and she's going to be talking a little later on. Now, many of you came here today from out of town. We appreciate that so much. And I think those of us from Morgantown should applaud all the people that came from around our wonderful country. And not only that, we even have someone that came all the way from Europe. Right next to Cleveland. Where is that guy? Shame on you.
Deutschland über alles.
You know, I'm just kidding. Anyway, we're here to talk about Don today. And Don Knotts, of course, Morgantown's favorite son, one of our favorite sons who not only was born here, grew up here, went to school here, and then became the very famous Don Knotts that we all know and love. You're going to hear some wonderful things about Don today, as well as watching a fantastic one-woman show called The Deputy's Daughter with Karen Knotts, and it's a great, great show in beautiful Metropolitan air-conditioned theater. Unfortunately, we can't afford to put it on today, but just kidding the mayor. I had to do that. I want to tell you a quick story about how I met Don Knotts. And after school at WVU back in the 70s, I went out to Los Angeles to work with CBS TV. And I found two other graduates from WVU that were also living in Los Angeles. And I got hold of them and I said, hey, Don Knotts is in a play in town. And I said, do you think you want to go? I said, let's go up to the will call window. And I said, you know, Don's a very nice guy. And they said, have you ever met him? I said, not in person, but I know a lot about Don. So we went to the will call and said, would you please tell Mr. Knotts, this is before the show started, that 3 people from Morgantown, West Virginia would love to meet him after the show. It was worth a shot, right? Most of the time, stars don't have time because as soon as they're done, they get the makeup off, they want to go home. Well, we get a message sent back that Mr. Knotts would love to see you at the end of the show. So we went backstage afterwards. They took us downstairs to the stage door. And coming down the steps in a trench coat, a very thin-looking Don, carrying a briefcase, walks right up to us, puts the briefcase down. He says, how's Morgantown? And he said, you know I grew up there. And of course, we all went, of course! And he talked to us for a good half hour, and as you will find out about Don later, he was not a person that believed in celebrity value, okay? Don came back to Morgantown so many times, people here didn't even know he was here. Because Don didn't come back to Morgantown to be pat on the back. He came back to Morgantown to his hometown. And he visited, as John Piles will contest, this is the truth, Don would come in secretly and go to functions, whether it was up at the Ramada Inn, high school reunions, or other dedications to him. But he was a very humble and sweet person. He really was. And that's why I like to tell that story about Don. And you're going to hear some more great stories and then see a great show. And you know we're here today to unveil a beautiful statue by a brilliant sculptor. Yeah. Jamie, was I close? Sculptor. That's how you say it right there. All right, let's move this on because I also want to tell you that after this, If you'd like to, we can't go into the theater yet, but we can go into the lobby if you're going to see the show, okay? Because Karen will have to set up. It'll take a few minutes. But if you're hot and you want to cool off, the air conditioning's on, you're more than welcome, the first 10. How are we going to get them all in the lobby? All right, John will stay out. That's no problem. Just kidding, John. Let me introduce, before I introduce the mayor, remind you that we have vendors across the street. You ought to see it. It's terrific. And some of the eateries here, I'm just going to mention a couple of them. Morgan's High Street Diner has, for today only, a Fife funnel cake and Mayberry burger. That's for Don. Jameson Pub has the Don burger. I like that. Boston Beanery has the Mayberry pasta bake and Mr. Farley's whiskey sour. I'll see ya! Oh my God. And you think I'm kidding? Later. Also, we have from the Sandwich U the Skinny Don Knots. I love that. The Barney BLT at Pita Pit and a Gibby's Don Knot Special Burger. All the eateries are doing things. Downtown Morgantown is so vibrant these days. Please shop, go around, enjoy food, and please enjoy today. At this point, I'd like to introduce the Right Honorable Mayor of the City of Morgantown. Please, Marty Shepherd.
Okay, can you hear me? Yeah. Good. On behalf of the City of Morgantown, I would like to welcome everybody here today. And first of all, I would like to recognize the Knotts family. If you're a member of the Knotts family, if you could please raise your hand. Or a distant relative. Well, thank you very much for coming. There's a few people I would also like to recognize today. Our city council members. If you could raise your hands, Bill Kowecki, Ron Bain, Jenny Celine, Wes Nugent, Nancy Gans, and Jay Redmond. If you could raise your hands, please. Thank you. We're also honored to have today with us our County Commissioner, Ed Hawkins. Ed. And a member of our House of Delegates, Joe Statler. If you raise your hands, please. Have I missed anybody? Okay, well, welcome. At this time, I would like to read a letter from Joe Manchin III, our United States Senator. On behalf of the citizens of the Mountain State and as your United States Senator, it is my privilege to welcome those attending the unveiling of the Don Knotts statue in beautiful Morgantown. Jesse Don Knotts was born in Morgantown on July 21st, 1924. He graduated from Morgantown High School and served in the U.S. Army during World War II before attending West Virginia University. Throughout his remarkable career, he was a proud West Virginian who gave much back to his community. And it is fitting that he is now memorialized in front of the Metropolitan Theatre. I greatly appreciate the efforts of Jamie Lester, of Vidalia Bronze, the Greater Morgantown Convention Center, and Visitors Bureau, the City of Morgantown, Main Street Morgantown, and Karen Knotts for making this event possible. With warmest regards, Joe Manchin III. And at this time, I would like to read a proclamation from our city. Whereas Jesse Don Knotts was born in Morgantown on July 21st, 1924, and graduated from Morgantown High School. He served in the United States Army during World War II before attending West Virginia University, where he earned his bachelor's degree. And whereas he began his career performing in many venues, including a ventriloquist act with a dummy named Danny Hooch Matador. While in the Army at the age of 19, he had grown tired of playing a straight man for a hunk of wood, so he threw him overboard off a ship in the South Pacific. And whereas Don Knotts got his first major break on a television soap opera, Search for Tomorrow, from 1953 to 1955, and came to fame in 1956 on Steve Allen's variety show, most notably in Allen's mock Man on the Street from 1959 to 1960, and appeared, excuse me, in the Broadway version of No Time for Sergeants in 1955 to 1957 and in 1958. And whereas Don Knotts was cast in Andy Griffith's TV series about a small-town sheriff in the role that would make him a legend for playing Deputy Barney Fife, Don was nominated for an Emmy Award for Best Supporting Actor 5 times from 1961 to 1967, winning each time. And whereas Don played Barney Fife on the Andy Griffith Show and starred in films including The Incredible Mr. Lippet in 1964, The Ghost and Mr. Chicken in 1966, The Shakiest Gun of the West in 1968, and How to Frame a Fig in 1971, he also held recurring roles on the TV shows Three's Company and Matlock, and made countless other television and movie appearances throughout his long career. And whereas Don was honored with a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame in 2000, in Morgantown, Don Knotts Boulevard was named in his honor, and he is recognized with a star, right here in front, of the Metropolitan Theatre. And whereas in 2006, a fund for the statue of Don Knotts was established by John Piles, with contributions from donors from all over the country. And whereas Jamie Lester, local sculptor, was commissioned to create the statue, which will be installed in front of the Metropolitan Theatre, now therefore I, Marty Schamberger, Mayor of the City of Morgantown, do hereby proclaim July 23rd through 24th, 2016, as Don Knotts Days in the City of Morgantown, and encourage all citizens to join in a remembrance and appreciation of this legendary comedian. I would also like to say at this time, it's my honor and pleasure to introduce a man who was a great friend of Don Knotts and was the person that was inspired to have this statue put together by Mr. Lester. So it's my pleasure to introduce Mr. John Piles.
Testing, 1, 2, 3, 4. Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to this historic event. It's been a long time coming, but here we are. The Don Knotts statue is ready for viewing. It was back in 2007. I started the statue fund. Morgantown's own sculptor, Jamie Lester, is its creator. And he's with us today, and he will always be with us. And he created a magnificent statue of Don. We want to praise him for that. More than 100 contributors were contributed to the fund. 23 were 23 were more than $1,000. I want to thank all those who contributed and those who assisted me in this endeavor, especially my wonderful wife, who made numerous trips to the post office, sending my old CD out, which I recorded back in late 50s, to the contributors. I want to thank Beth Fuller, who worked with the foundation, or the community foundation at the time, who helped, and Judy Garvey, who's working there now handling the funds for the community foundation. I want to thank Kay Fanuck with the Convention and Visitors Bureau, and Peggy Myers-Smith, Jenny Celine, who's city councilor who worked with me, and Mayor Schamberger, of course, and the county commission, who for years, when I was on the commission, contributed to the Met Theater as a contributor to the renovation and preservation, and Joe Taylor, who helps and works for Bow Park and runs the Met. Last week, I received a call from J.C. Warman of Slight Indulgence. He told me he had a gift basket he was delivering. J.C. was a former member of the Met Board. And the note I got in the basket of goodies was from Francie Knott, Don's widow. Dear John and Charlotte, thank you for all your wonderful work through the years. I know Don is smiling down on you. All the best. Francie Yarabora was her maiden name, Knotts. And Francie was here in 2009, I think was, when we did the show. She performed also. But it's wonderful to hear from her. She could not be here today. She's caring for her elderly mother in Texas. We have a wonderful opportunity here, probably a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, to make this district from Fayette Street, Pleasant Street, the historic district, for tourism. One thing we need is key. We need the county commission to approve the ground floor of the old senior building across from the courthouse as a museum for Morgantown. It's now located on Kirk Street. How many people know where the Morgantown Museum is? How many have been there? A lot of people haven't. How many people find it very accessible? None. What we need is a storefront place like the old senior building. People can walk in, see all the things about Morgantown. We have things, Pam Ball, the head of the museum, will testify that they have lots and lots of artifacts, memorabilia down there that they have no place to put. We could have rooms in that ground floor for different people, sports figures, local musicians, a lot of things we could do there if it's available. I don't want to put any pressure on the county commission. I know they're good people, and but that's the way I'm looking at it. You know, we have a great edifice here, a majestic theater that we must never forget and must always restore and remember. But when we started the renovation for this theater back in the late 90s, the guy that's really responsible for this board and this theater was Carl Yeagle. He was the first who started the board. Is Carl here today? He's so shy, he probably wouldn't tell us anyway. But anyway, I served on the board, and the theater was for sale, $250,000. It's like somebody offering you a 707 for $50,000. what would you do with it, you know? It might have been a parking lot if it had not been for former Congressman Alan Mollahan, who got us $1 million to purchase the theater and begin the renovations. Later on, he got us another $1 million. Now, some people say that's pork. No, I say it's beef. And if we don't get it, somebody else will. So Alan Mollahan deserves a lot of credit for saving this theater. Don was a very humble guy, came from humble beginnings. His mother had a boarding house on University Avenue, and he told me one time that the boarding house was so full. Does everyone know what a boarding house is? It's an old term. Had so many boarders that he had to sleep in the kitchen. But he came from very humble beginnings. He would come to Morgantown in the summer. I'd get together with him up at Jarvie Eldridge's house. And we would sing, have a good time. One time we went to the Glass House Grill right after we dedicated the boulevard in his honor. And we were singing together. Don had a pretty good voice, by the way. And so one of the waitresses came back and she says, "There's somebody out here who wants this bunch of drunks to stop singing, it's disturbing the peace." And so I said, "Man, tell that gentleman that we are not drunk, we're happy. Don Knotts is here to prove it." So she didn't come back. But Don first decided that he wanted to be an actor when his mother would bring him here at the Met. He would get up on the stage for open mic night. Now, Don said he couldn't sing very well, but he could. But he would do anything to get on the stage. And so this is where he got his start. So this is hallowed ground, so to speak. And this two-block area can become hallowed too, with a historic tourist attraction for Morgantown, and we can become one of the leaders of tourism in the state of West Virginia. And we will, I guarantee it, if we get the help of the county commission. I see one county commissioner here. The mayor mentioned that Don was a ventriloquist. He and I attended the same elementary school, Seneca Elementary. He was 7 years ahead of him. He would come back and entertain as a ventriloquist. And when he was in the service, as the mayor said, he entertained the troops on the different islands in the Pacific. And one time he was leaving an island and he tossed Danny overboard. And I asked him, I said, "Well, why did you toss Danny overboard?" And he said, "Because Danny was getting more laughs than I was." So he was that type of guy, laid back, wonderful guy. Today we have, of course, Karen with us. She's Don's daughter. She's a librarian in her day job. Performs all over the country on her Tied Up in Knots, and also the deputy's daughter. And we're happy to have her today. She's a great gal and carrying on her father's footsteps. And I think that's about all I have to say, except thank you all for coming.
Thank you, John Piles, once again. Everybody, save yourself. He does that so well, doesn't he? You ought to see him at 55 miles an hour. All right, we're back on. At this time, it's a great pleasure to introduce, again, I had the fortune to do this a few years ago, But let's introduce a fine lady, a wonderful daughter, and the daughter of Don Knotts. Please, Karen Knotts is right here.
Crowd you guys are, and this is a thrill for me, of course. Obviously, it's a thrill, a huge thrill to have your father's statue. My goodness. And, you know, if it wasn't for John Pyle spearheading this fundraising, we wouldn't all be here doing this today. So let's give him a thank you, a special hand. I just want to say, you know, how important Morgantown was to my dad. You know, from the time my brother and I were kids, we heard so much about this town, and certain places in town, like the clock tower, the West Virginia University clock tower, they were legend in our minds. You know, so many stories, and about the movie theater he ushered, and just little places in town. And he was kind of secretive when he come here. We didn't even know he was coming, usually, unless it was a high school reunion. But he did bring me here one time when I was about 9 years old. And he took me to the Hotel Morgan, which I guess at the time was the only hotel in town. Was it, John? The only hotel? And so he brought me in there, and he was so proud showing me around, and he set down the suitcase, rang the bell, and nobody showed up. Finally, after we waited about, I don't know, 5 or 10 minutes, a fella came up, shuffling on down the stairs, just real relaxed. Dad just said, howdy, what can I do for you? So that's Morgantown. That's my hometown. He was so proud. And I do see, looking around at the town, I see, you know, influences in the town that he brought to the Andy Griffith Show. The characters in town and even the buildings in the town, they just give me that feeling. And he was really very, very close to the town. And we had... he did bring out Jarvie Eldred and Richie Ferrara, as John mentioned, when he had some very special ceremonies, like when he got his star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. He invited Jarvie and Richie Ferrara to come out, and they were in the limousine driving around, and my dad was having so much fun talking with them, telling stories about Morgantown, reminiscing. He'd come back to see Jarvie all the time, and on his birthday and everything, and he was just really, really fond of the town. And I really am so thrilled to be here. I come every year. Have you guys ever been to Mayberry Days, any of you? And have you? Okay, so that's a really great event in Mount Airy, North Carolina, every year that keeps the Andy Griffith Show alive, because people come and they dress like the characters, and it's a real blast. You know, it's a real blast of the past. And so I've been doing my show there every year, and it's just wonderful. And my dad, even when he got famous, it never affected him. He was just still the small town guy, like John said, very humble and shy even. And for years, people have been encouraging me to write a book about my dad. And I've always shied away from that, and I finally decided I'm going to do it. Really going to do it this time. So thank you. I need that encouragement. Thank you. And over the years, people have emailed me or Facebooked me about saying that they were relative of my dad or distant relations, and had little stories about my dad. And I would always say, oh, thank you, that's nice to hear, but I never kept track of them. And so I want to encourage you, if any of you knew my dad or knew somebody, a relative or somebody or a friend who knew him and have a little story, please tell me. Find me and tell me. I'll be here through part of Monday. So please, you know, come and find me and tell me about it. Or if you can't track me down, or our paths don't cross, send me a message on Facebook. Now, how many of you older folks are doing Facebook now, huh? Are ya? That's good. Let me give you a hand for that, because that's good. I want to encourage you guys to get on Facebook, because, you know, you can really connect with people on Facebook. What if you want to find your first person you ever dated? You can find them on Facebook sometimes. So please do track me down, and I just want to say, yay, and I can't wait. So thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much, Karen. By the way, tomorrow there'll be a meet and greet with Karen. from 1 to 3 p.m. at the Morgantown Museum. So it would be nice for those of you who can. That's a great opportunity for you to stop by, see her, and maybe tell a story or two about Don, okay? Well, this is what we've been waiting for. It's time to, what? You have something, I thought you want to say something now? Are you sure you want to talk now? Excuse me, just one. I got it easy.
Just take it off. There you go.
John.
Before the unveiling, I wanted to say that Francie Knotts, Don's widow, had called me after his... during the... now you forgot my train of thought. Anyway, when we dedicated the boulevard, the county commission approved that, and Don was there at the dedication, and he looked out on the boulevard, and he says, "I think I want my toll booth put about right there." And every time I talked to him afterwards, he would say, "Have they put my toll booth up yet?" But now, Don, you're here on the High Street. You can have your own toll booth, collect all you want. Don't we say yes to that? Don, you can have it. You deserve it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, John. All right, at this time, it's time to unveil. You've got to see this. It's so beautiful. Jamie, I know you're ready. So let's bring up Karen, Jamie Lester, Matt Marino, John Piles to unveil this beautiful statue. Yes. Do you want to do it, Karen, on the count of, you want it like 1, 2, 3, and then are you ready? We're all excited. 1, 2, 3! Oh my goodness! Hey, Karen, that is cool. Wow. That is truly amazing. And I know many of you want to take pictures, but before, I just want Jamie to say a few words, because this gentleman right here is the finest in the state of West Virginia, if not in the United States of America. Here is our great sculptor, Jamie Lester.
Thank you, Larry. You're too kind. First, thanks for all this huge crowd and everyone coming from such distant places. We all really appreciate you guys coming to our event. It makes it special because you guys are the ones who are fans of Don Knotts and make him alive today, and his spirit alive today. Thanks, Karen, for coming. It makes it really special. I just wanted to say a few words about the making of the statue. We talked with Karen and Francie and the Knotts family early on, and it was decided early on that we wanted to make a portrait of Don Knotts, the man, the artist, the actor, the comedian, the ventriloquist, all the things that made him who he is. He was not his characters. He created those characters. He was Don Knotts, and this sculpture is a portrait of Don Knotts, which I think is really the right thing to do. And I hope that young actors coming to the Metropolitan Theatre here in Morgantown can look at the statue, maybe wonder, maybe they don't know who Don Knotts is, and they're going to find out. And hopefully they'll be inspired by his story and everything he was able to do just by believing in his dream. So thank you guys very much again for coming. Thanks for everyone who made this a possibility. John Piles, the whole city council for supporting us, and again, Karen Knotts for coming.
All right, you know, you are a great crowd. And thank you so much for putting up with the heat. It's just beginning. And I understand, John, you said you wanted to take that statue home? No, it's staying here, John. You cannot have that statue. That stays here. We better start on your statue pretty soon. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for coming. Karen has to get set up inside. Those of you who want to come in and cool off can stay in the lobby for a few moments, okay? Before this great show begins. Please remember, those of you who are visiting us from out of town, welcome to Morgantown. Eat in Morgantown. Shop in Morgantown, because this is one of the greatest cities in the world. Thank you for coming. God bless you, and God bless Don Knotts.